you started an engineering company from scratch, and now in a short space of time, you've got over 100 staff. How did you do that? Housing crisis, New South Wales, Sydney. What's the biggest unlock in your mind right now?
We're challenging a whole bunch of elements of our industry which have grown louder and unopposed over the last 10 to 15 years, only to realise the position that we're in.
Do you think or consider yourself lucky to be where you are?
Yes, but I would consider myself as someone who took advantage of an opportunity that I created.
What's driving you at the moment? And how do you get up every morning and just go hard at it again and again and again?
Yes, it's not growth. At the end of the day, what gets me out of bed is a desire to create something of value, which is hopefully going to outlive me.
Phil Byrum, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Engineer. It's so amazing to have you here.
Darren, good evening, mate. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, so wow. I don't even know where to start, particularly over your career. Tell me, and really, I need to know. You started an engineering company from scratch, and now in a short space of time, you've got over 100 staff. How did you do that?
Yeah, well, it's we initially started off as an engineering business. I guess now Orion Group has evolved into offering with surveying and structural engineering, civil engineering, town planning, and a few other bits and pieces. But yeah, when we started out, the business was called Orion Consulting Engineers. And that was the ABN, and still kind of is in some of the training parts of it. We eventually evolved into Orion Consulting. But how did I start it? Well, I guess the story's a long-ish, and I've told it a number of times, but the story generally remains the same. And if I wander off, just let me know. But a friend and I, at the time I was working as an engineer and a project manager doing a lot of large-scale industrial land development projects. My career had spanned from surveying, structural engineering, civil engineering, found my feet in land development. Tended towards the land development side of the business because, or the land development side of engineering anyway, because it was broad and it was interesting, and there was multiple things going on, hydraulics and roads and traffic and earthworks and all that good stuff. Definitely found that to be my niche. And in 2014, 2015, growth centres were really kicking off in Western Sydney anyway. We found an opportunity, a colleague and I were out kind of scouting for land and other opportunities and just seeing what was going on. And my colleague came across a parcel of land who was able to connect that parcel of land to a developer. That developer needed some advice. I offered to help my friend, assess the site and the developer, and that developer ended up having multiple sites in Western Sydney with not a lot of experience in development. And I happened to have quite a number of years of experience in development and in those areas, and offered a bit of advice. He took it up, asked me to help him deliver the rest of his sites. I said yes, and the rest is kind of history, I suppose. So 3 sites in Western Sydney. It was around about 340 odd residential lots at the time, 3 contracts ready to go, and backed ourselves to do it. So that's how it all kind of started, Darren. And we also had a lot of good friends as well and clients that backed me as well. So we got a contract with Lendlease, which was still an excellent client of ours, and they backed us very early on as well for a new estate. And then we just went hard after that. The opportunities just kept flowing.
So, at the time, young family,
Yeah.
a lot of risk out there. How did you have that moment of going, I'm going to just back myself on this? Was there like a pivotal moment where you just went, you know what, I'm just going to go all in on this and give it a crack? Was there this moment of just going, oh my God, like I'm actually going to go do something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. When the first client we had gave us that opportunity and said, I've got hundreds of lots, can you help me do it? We went, oh, cow. And asked for a fee proposal, wrote the fee proposal. And when it was accepted, it was kind of like, okay, shit, we're off now. I went through the usual process, the machinations that a lot of engineers would do. What are the risks? What's the downside? What are the costs? What are the insurances? And we tried to basically pull together a business strategy. just finished an MBA or partway through an MBA, nearly finished an MBA at the time as well. So had a little bit of technical training, I suppose, in that regard. But then you also start weighing up some of the pros and cons, and if it comes off, what are the financial benefits? What are the freedom benefits? Very little when you start off, very little freedom benefits. But the basically, Darren, what it came down to was where I pushed the button on let's create this business online was a question I posed to myself, which was a very old man, Phil, on his deathbed, maybe 80 odd, looking back on his career and wondering whether or not I'd kick myself or be disappointed with myself if I didn't give it a go. So the answer came back, yes, I would be disappointed in the young person Phil looking back 50 odd years later. So I did it. Basically, that was the test. It felt right, and it felt uncomfortable not taking that risk. And that decision far outweighed any of the other sensitivities that I'd done myself. So that's
So
it.
I love that. You've asked your future self, would I regret this on my deathbed?
Yep.
You've undertaken your own risk assessment, like a typical engineer.
Yeah.
And then you've just gone, what have I got to lose?
Pretty much that was it. I'd come to a number of scenarios, sensitivities, weigh them up, pros, cons, balance out. You always end up balancing the ledger in one way, but you want to do it, you don't want to do it. I had to find a way to break that cycle, and that was it. That's the truth.
Is there anything now, speaking about regrets, that you look back and you go, oh, and I know, and this isn't about, no regrets and that probably, epiphany itself, but is there anything you look back now and go, I could have done that a little bit differently? I mean, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but maybe something erring on more of a regret than anything else where you went, yeah, maybe I could have played that differently, that might have reshaped the direction of your current position?
Yes, but that comes with the benefit of hindsight of having gone.
Yes.
So I would say no, because we've started some businesses recently with the benefit of hindsight, and the approach is a lot more different. It's a lot more calculated. There's a lot more learnings that have gone into it, and we get things going a lot quicker. But part of the fun is a way to describe it, I suppose, but part of the fun and the learning is actually cutting your teeth on a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes that you take forward. They're lessons that are incredibly valuable in business and just in engineering, just in people anyway. So I would say that looking back, there'd be a multitude of things that I have learned from and would do differently, but I wouldn't go back and change any of them. What would that mean? Go and do differently? Maybe I could go back and influence myself to maybe not make some of those silly decisions or hire or take on clients or take a risk on something. But again, each one of those has influenced in some part the business and the people that we are now and the company and the growth that we've achieved. So long way around of saying no.
It's fascinating because, I often find from talking to a lot of people that it's often the hard things, the mistakes, there's something that went wrong that they had the most learning from that actually propelled them forward even more or gave them that, ability to grow. So, you're right, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but to be able to say that, that's essentially the best thing you could ever say, because sure, yeah, everyone could have done something differently, but those mistakes that you've learned from are definitely key in what shaped you where you are.
Absolutely. We did get better and more sophisticated as we grew. The faster we were growing, the more prevalent and significant the risks were becoming. And there was a point in time, I think when you're growing a business of professional services anyway, you hit around 2 or 3, you're like, that's a big milestone. And you get to about 6 or 7, you're like, holy cow, we've doubled. That's a big milestone.
Yeah.
Then it's around 15, and then it's around 35, 70, and it's around the 100 mark again. But at around 35, we had a serious business. We were running red hot. We're in Australia's fastest starters, number 34 or something.
Wow.
Okay, it's time to get some advice and get some professionals in. So we've got professionals, probably not a way to put it, I suppose, but people have done it before. So we formed an advisory group, and that helped us ask those questions, those pitfalls of people that have done it before. And that was also an accelerator in growth. But yeah, wow, to get to where we were, those formative years were incredibly influential in the business that we were and the business that we are now.
how important was and is that advisory board for you? I mean, I know I would say a lot of young engineers and professionals, they're looking up to you. You're the leader, managing director, founder. For you at that position where you are now, how important is it for you to have your own mentors and advisory board?
But fundamental. There's a number of things that I've come across almost daily where I can call on our advisory group. We've got some absolute weapons in our team as well, excellent people, and they've kind of done it before. They've been around it before. They know someone that has, even
Yeah.
if it's just a humanitarian side of things, or how to gauge a response to something, or it's a business proposition, or if there's insurance risk, something like that. Do we have a lot of insurance risk? But yeah, I can't underestimate or understate the value of having access to a mentor has been, or coaches and advisory groups been in our business.
Yeah, I mean, I try and talk about it a lot. And, a lot of people have talked about that, having a selection of people, whether it's, accountants, engineers, other managers, other directors, network,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but in an advisory capacity who are, looking out for your best interests. It doesn't stop, because I think a lot of younger engineers think, oh, find that mentor, but it's, I think, very important to let people know early in their career that that will never end, and
Never, never.
there will always be advice that you need along the way to hit your straps and find your strengths.
Correct. Yeah, spot on. I mean, I'd be very comfortable giving advice to somebody who's designing a land development project, an industrial subdivision, or technical drainage analysis or something like that. And I know that there'll be people out there younger than me that probably be more competent in giving me some advice on how to do that. But in terms of running a business or coaching a human and developing yourself as a human, you just can't. It's not possible to know it all, and it's really to have that support.
So it's amazing to have you, because in my mind, you are the epitome of an entrepreneurial engineer. You've founded a business, you're an engineer, you've done an MBA. Tell me, what have you learned more from founding and growing a business, or the MBA that you did?
Well, thank you for that, Darren. I don't consider myself that the entrepreneurialism tag. I mean, I'll accept it. I've put it on my LinkedIn there for a while, but it always is something that you just kind of sometimes you just wake up and you just hear. It's a bit of a rolling stone. You just magnify the energy that you put into something. But the MBA was, I thought it was excellent. I did a combined degree anyway. I was always predisposed to the sciences as a young bloke, but I was never overly biased to just engineering. But Dad was an engineer.
Yeah.
Um,
What sort of engineer, can I ask?
well, he was civil, but he was pretty creative bloke. He was an artist. He could draw. He could landscapes, and he would be able to do portraits and things. He was really quite a talented. Didn't get any of that, but he was a really talented. Artist.
Well,
The
you're
poor
not,
bugger,
you're not
poor
doing
bugger was
drawings anymore.
no, they're like these. Something was like my kids do a better job than me.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Not to say that I'm not creative. I'm just not creative in the traditional sense, I suppose. But he was colourblind, so he couldn't do electrical engineering because that would have been a little bit dangerous for some about with the green wire, whatever it is.
Yep.
Um, so I took civil. He did civil and structural as well. I've got some of his old plans, actually. Excellent detailing, great drafting, the old
Oh,
scratching and it's a
yeah.
thing. Yeah. So anyway, so I took that with me, but I also enjoyed and still do legal studies.
Yeah.
I do still enjoy the law. I'm interested in the law and business. I was always interested in commerce as well.
Yeah.
So when I when it was came time to choose a career, I actually chose medical science, I think, first.
Wow.
But then I got into engineering and business at UTS, and I read the curriculum, and I liked the civil engineering side of things, so I chose civil engineering and business finance, and that was an excellent career choice for me. It's just using different parts of your brain. But in terms of the benefit of the MBA later on, that was excellent because there was other elements in the MBA and the administration side of things, which is more the humanities side, which I got a lot of value out of.
Whoa.
Nothing will absolutely qualify you to run a business other than just running a business and getting on with it. Doesn't matter what degrees you have, what level of technicality you have. I would say vocational learning is the best testament of who you are as a professional.
Yeah, because I mean, influencers left, right, and center. You know, your degree is just your degree. If you want to do this, cut your teeth. If you want to do that, just start. And it's interesting the landscape across social media that portray, maybe what that really means, and it's actually quite important that you've highlighted something that in your MBA isn't just around directorship, whether it's business administration or otherwise. It's really just talking about the human impact. um, I often talk about, engineers are people, businesses is people. If you want to be good at anything, you have to learn how to work with people. How important of what you just said, that people and culture aspect, has that been for you in building and growing Orion Group?
Another fundamental element, dealing with people, understanding personality traits, understanding groupthink, things that you would just ordinarily take for granted, but you can see it in theory. In theory is great, but actually seeing it unwind in practice is fascinating. And I like to think that I'm relatively good with people. I'm no expert, I'm no Mahatma or anything, but I like to think I get a good sense. I like to think that I get a good sense of who people are and the right fit for our business as well. We've got a certain type of cultural fit in our business, which somewhat narrows the talent pool, I suppose, a little bit as well. But they're excellent people, generally very ambitious or very astute, technically astute, but they're all just genuinely good people that give a damn about who they are and what they're contributing to society. I think that's what most good people want. And the people that are just contributing to society to get something out for us as an individual is not someone that you necessarily want in a large scale organization. So people side, Darren, fundamental, and understanding what motivates people and particularly what demotivates people, like taking the car spot away from somebody. That's probably the worst demotivator that you could potentially do at all, even if you change someone's title.
Yeah.
Losing a car spot is one of the worst things you can do to anyone. So little things like that, and understanding that decisions that you make at a business level has ramifications across a group, and understanding how that might play out and mitigate them to your best ability, but not try and control everything as well. It's a very delicate, that's a science in itself. I don't even like to quantify as science, but the human side of business is something that I think is often unappreciated potentially. And I don't think people often think that engineers don't appreciate the humanitarian side of things. I think we do, but we just potentially sometimes seen it a slightly skewed manner, potentially. I don't know. Maybe that's being unfair to engineers as well. But fundamentally underneath it all, engineers are just good people that give a damn or want to contribute. Again, back to my earlier point.
Yeah, I often say that engineers have a heart, because I think sometimes
they do.
they're like robots.
Yeah.
And it's true. And that, I think you're right. That whole humanitarian impact, society impact, can often be overlooked, particularly when you're providing the infrastructure for people to live and for communities as well.
Yeah, and our business right now is at the bleeding edge of supplying critical infrastructure in the housing. Like what better motivator for the people in our business to write the statement of effects, which is supported by the civil engineering designs, which is supported by the survey, which is supported by services investigations and water servicing coordination, that then goes and provides thousands of homes. I mean, being a part of that is an incredibly rewarding career, and we don't let our people forget that, right? And they don't. We're all very in tune to the fact that we're a critical element in providing necessary, probably the biggest crisis in the country right now.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Obviously, it's something that's very close to my heart and I'm passionate about. Right, let's go. Housing crisis, New South Wales, Sydney. What's the biggest unlock in your mind right now that might help? And
Biggest unlock.
you can go as long as you want, as short as you want. Um, be open, be liberal,
I've got
be
what
whatever
about
you like.
I've got so many on this, Darren, so I won't just yabber on for a while. But
I'll pick a
I
few.
think I think I think the government. I won't stay in government for too long, but I think the government's got the right idea, and some of the stuff that state government is saying is just the right messaging. We're definitely supporting the right ideas, and we're backing the right initiatives, and we're challenging NIMBYism, and we're challenging the naysayers, and we're challenging a whole bunch of elements of our industry which have grown louder and unopposed over the last 10 to 15 years, only to realize the position that we're in is totally bothersome. There is no real leadership which is bringing it all together to define the greater good and the vision and the outcome of the benefit for all. I think that what government and our leaders on both sides, the development side as well, are missing. I think everyone said it is how are we all coming together, and how are we all influencing each other's biases to try and help us overcome them so we can actually get some bloody runs on the board. That's not happening from what I can see. You can go and purport thousands of homes in these areas, and we're going to go and do it. But how does that work when one of the authorities has a mandated bureaucratic approach that says, if you want to move a pipe or a sewer or something, I'm not just blaming a water authority, but has an approach which is mandated, that is a critical part of the system that could take up 10 months of an approval process after DA, and then just say, yeah, we'll just come and do it, and then buy us one section of the market. I just don't think that we've got the human side of the equation right to actually then go and push the button and get the technical construction side of the equation right. Notwithstanding the fact that there's the pressures in the market from supply side economics and cost of labour, cost of suppliers, and all of those other elements, which I'm hoping time will come down with other impacts from infrastructure and what have you. But fundamentally right now, it just doesn't stack up. Why would you take the risk as a developer? You get kicked in the teeth on the way in, you get kicked in the teeth on the way out trying to make a profit.
Yeah.
Why would you go and develop? Which is troubling for us because that's our business. We support that industry.
Do you feel impacts of the crisis just in general across the industry? Do you feel maybe two parts, that there's enough resources if the pipeline actually came on, or maybe secondly, is there maybe a take on, because I get a lot of people saying, we're busier than ever, it's out of control, like we're just so, but then I hear other people in the market, maybe a different take. So just get a bit of a feel from you on your take on the impact it's having across the industry in general.
I think a well-motivated team, a small, well-motivated team can punch its way out of anything just about. So I think as a collective of experts and professionals that are all aligned and together and headed in the one direction, like I said before, on a vision, I reckon you can motivate the people of this state and this country to do whatever it takes. We've done it before. God, go all the way back to the Anzac spirit, what made this country great initially. I have absolutely no doubt that we can replicate that. It's just not happening. There's too many individual players. So I think that, to answer your question, I would say somewhat yes, there's bigger factors at play, like the supply of labour and the physical cost of materials. Yeah, that's going to be hard to be overcome. But there's models in there, and there's fiscal elements that we could pull. Again, beyond my expertise as a humble business person in New South Wales and also Queensland now too. But I believe that yes, we can do it. It's just the alignment of priorities isn't there. And at the end, whilst we're all busy, Darren, I'd say we're all busy spinning wheels on a lot of just stuff. Like we're not busy producing. We're just busy being busy. We're busy answering RFIs on classic point. And this is going to sound like I'm council bashing. I'm absolutely not. I've got a very tough gig, but we spent, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks pontificating on where a temporary turnout should go for a waste vehicle in one of the Western Sydney councils at subdivision certificate stage, and this was holding up hundreds of lots, right? So we're spending our energy focusing on the wrong things, the not things that are going to be moving the needles, but the things that's going to be I don't know, black and white and check boxes and perfection and covering our asses so we don't get sued or in trouble, or no one's prepared to take a risk because no one gets rewarded for risk. So it's a poor example for it. I don't mean to lay it on the councils.
No, no, it's an important point, and it sort of has so many segues and tangents where we talked to a lot of guests about there's a missing middle in competency, and in engineering, particularly in some authorities. It is difficult when you get pipped to the post by something that at the end of the day it doesn't actually, like you mentioned, move the needle.
Into anything. Yeah.
Some of the things that you start talking about, you're wondering, if engineering and logic could prevail, well, we wouldn't even be talking about this because it's a null and mute point. That is, other than priority, I definitely agree. That for me is probably the thing that's holding us back. Not just over engineering, not just layers of contingency, but we're getting stuck into the detail that doesn't do anything for the project.
We're measuring the wrong outcomes as well. We're not.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would agree with you there. The last thing I would say as well is our industry has a big role to play in that as well. We're responsible for the quality that goes in, and we should be responsible for the quality that's constructed. I think that giving maybe this is a little bit biased by me saying this, but I tend to believe it based on the evidence. In Queensland, for example, is giving more power to the private enterprise or the private engineers, like an RPEQ model, to take more ownership throughout a development process. There's more risk on us.
Yeah.
There's also more incentive on us to get it right because there is more risk on us. Where at the moment, the building practitioners started to do that, I believe, but for land and for mass lots of development, we are still just so heavily caught up in bureaucracy that as consultants, we're spending most of our time just rehashing the same approach to do a slightly different worded request for information. And you might 3 or 4 times.
If, over in Perth, you're talking like basically a 3-month DA and then to a certifier that could be turned around in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
All that. And you're like, wow. I mean, why don't we have a national, notice of termination DA / consent / approval pathway that was streamlined like that? It'd be something else, right?
Absolutely, mate. And this has been a very long way around of saying if you can reduce the time and the effort and energy it takes to go and get approval, you're also knocking months, if not years, off of financial exposure, which then could be recapitalized and redeployed into more development. So I think it is just a poor use of resources and a poor capitalization of those resources, which is fundamentally going to slow us down and potentially stop us getting to that metric.
Well, if there's a decision maker from the government, anyone, Chris Minns, if you're listening, mate, pick up the phone. Phil would be more than happy to take your call and be happy to further digress in how we can solve the housing crisis. So, at that one. Now, tell me, you wake up tomorrow. What's your mission? What mission are you on? What's driving you at the moment? And how do you get up every morning and just go hard at it again and again and again? What's that thing that's driving you? What's your mission?
That's a good question. We have a vision in our business, and we see our business as being a national, a leading source of professional service advice nationally. That doesn't mean we need to grow to be some big behemoth. We believe we're going to be able to get big by staying small. But I guess it's not growth at the end of the day. What gets me out of bed is a desire to create something of value, which is hopefully going to outlive me. And it already has. The people that we have in the business are excellent, and they're already off doing their own careers and generating their own opportunities and realizing that within the business. But our mission, we say integrity, reliability, and quality. Like that's part of our mission. To create a business which people value because of those tenets is something that I'm constantly getting after. Sometimes making mistakes, not on the integrity side of things, but you're always balancing influences. But I would say getting out of bed every morning to go and create a new opportunity that gives us that gives us a chance to grow and become something that we weren't the day before is of extraordinarily strong motivator and very powerful for me personally. Chance to define your own career is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I love that. 1% better every day and creating opportunities that you didn't have the day before.
Yeah, and work on people that are in the trenches with you that are in the same journey. They've joined because they want to be part of something which is challenging and changing, and they can learn and grow with it and make those mistakes and feel part of the decisions that move us ahead too. So yeah.
36% of listeners won't subscribe to this podcast, and that's a real shame. If you want to help me share the stories and help others learn and grow, then please like and subscribe. On that, so you've got out of bed. That's great. Love the mission statement. What is some of your biggest challenges at the moment, not just for your business, but for you, like in navigating your way through your role?
Yeah, the challenges for us, I suppose, is for me personally, is the deployment of my own time, which is a very if you think of it as a piece of capital, but where do you deploy for the highest return? Where am I going to invest? A very rare commodity that you can't regenerate. It's not a renewable. And where am I going to get the best value out of it? So that for me is kind of where I've been, and developing the business is something which I am just on a constant journey of, and that's where I spend a lot of my time. So determining what I do with my very precious resource of time is a key source. But I don't sit still for very long. I tend to just kind of get after it. And if something's standing still, I'll generate something. So there's no real risk of sitting idle. But the biggest challenge is in the professional services business and the biggest opportunity and reward is just the people. So it's not just deploying a unit of my time; it's deploying a unit of other people's very rare resources and magnifying that across 110 people. They've all got limited resources, and they all want to feel like they're part of something as well. So I'm cognizant of that, and I want to make sure that the people in our team are getting the best uses of the commitment that they're making. So, yeah, that's a good
Won't lie, it is true. There may have been one point in time where I had a moment of thinking about you and your time. And I'm not lying. There's nothing creepy about it. Let's be honest. I thought, okay, here's a guy. Okay, he's got 40 hours in a week, for example. You probably got 80. I don't know. Let's just do the math, right? So you got 40 hours in a week. Say you got 40 clients, right? That's an hour a client. Oh, hold on. Nah, no way. He's got 80 clients. Okay, that's half an hour a client. No. You got way more than that. So say you got 160, right? And you're going, okay, 15 minutes per client per week. And then you're like, how do you sustain something like that? And then how do you manage your time so you have enough time in front of a key client or a staff member, or, whether or not it's your kids, your family, like someone's got to sleep, right? I get that. So how do you actually navigate managing your time? You mentioned it, so I'm picking up on it, because I can imagine, across the space of a month, a year, a week, a day, you've obviously got priorities and you've got a lot to juggle. How do you juggle that?
You just
What systems and processes?
there's no equation, there's no coefficient input that yields you a probabilistic determinant answer to it, Darren. I once listened to a audio book. It was Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, once. And then what I took out of that book was, he said, he gets up, was it Bob Iger or someone else? Maybe it wasn't Bob. Forget the book. We might have to come back to that bit. But the CEO's job was basically triage. So he got up in the morning, they get themselves sorted, they get in early, get the meditation out of the way, whatever you got to do to just get your mind in the game.
Yep.
8 o'clock, the triage would just start. So you would always work around the triage element. There's always something you have to triage. And if you think you're on this nice, static, slight incline trajectory, there's a cliff coming and you just don't see it. You've got to be prepared for that cliff. I've got a little bit complacent lately. We've been going excellent. I didn't leave enough capacity for a cliff. There's always something that happens. So I'm kind of dealing with one or two of those now, and there's opportunity in that. But you need to prioritize what's going to move the dial for you, not just for you, but for the people around you, and also for the business, and particularly for your clients as well. You can't just be focusing on trying to build a business by acquiring another company and forget the fact that there's a whole bunch of people that have got you to where you are, and they deserve the attention probably more so than the acquisition that you're looking at. So how do I do it? Is there is no formula that I can give you other than there is a point where you realize when you're growing a business or when you're growing yourself that you cannot do it all. You must delegate, and if you don't delegate, you will die. Like whatever you're working on will die. It will just die on the vine, and something else will start to wither away. You have to grow out of it. You have to be continually growing, and you have to be continually delegating and managing the delegation. So there's a point where you develop this machine, which is a perpetual motion machine, where you grow, or your energy spins up, and you have to kind of change gears to release and get to the next mechanical advantage. That's the best way that I can describe it. You just go where you are needed. I think most business people, and I think engineers are generally pretty good at determining what is important and what's got the most risk, what needs to be addressed. I would say some could work on that, actually. Some tend to overanalyze and get into the minutiae. It's a really long-winded, fluffy way of saying you just have to set yourself a couple of priorities and leave yourself enough bandwidth to address the things you can't see coming.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're just working really hard on weekends and nights. And you've got to be prepared to do that as well. Because if you don't, someone else will.
They certainly will. I often say that the day that you're out of an inbox is the day of freedom. How many emails would you get a day, just out of interest? Like 200?
Stop counting. Yeah.
Yeah.
In that order. And you look at one, and the moment you don't look at them, they multiply.
Yeah.
Like rabbits that just, they just keep growing in your inbox. I'm lucky enough. I got to a point recently where I taken on an assistant executive assistant. So that's definitely helped me manage my day as well. And calendars and things. Goodness, I used to make mistakes with calendars. When you're missing appointments, where if someone's like, "Hey man, you're joining this Teams meeting," you're like, "Which one was that?" "Oh, the one that we spoke about yesterday." You're like, "Okay, time to get better at the way that I administer my life."
Yeah, or someone's like, "Oh, you coming for coffee?" You're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh no, it's somewhere else," and you're like, "Oh, yeah, missed that one."
Everyone does it, but that's a sign that you need to reassess the way that you're managing your life.
So you work with a lot of young engineers, and I hope that there's a lot of young engineers listening. You've obviously mentored and essentially are coaching many young engineers. For them who are listening, is there a couple of things that you could tell them to either inspire them to keep on pushing, or a couple of key things that you might be able to give them some insights into on what it was like for you as a young engineer, but then also some of the things that you learned along the way that might just give them, a little bit of a leg up, or, a secret insight into maybe how you overcame your young engineering career?
That's a big one. Yeah. My young engineering career was incredibly valuable. I look back on it with there was a lot of ignorance in my young engineering career. So your mentoring comment, I think, was very appropriate. I can remember, and I actually think this was quite formative for me, and I don't mean it to come across as negative the way that it will come out, but I can remember being in one of my first businesses and putting a set of plans together. I wasn't a draftsperson by any stretch, but I just managed to cobble together enough AutoCAD skills to put together a structural plan based on copying somebody else's and send it off for a check. And and it was marked at a 10 in red pen, and it came back with like a 0 or 1 out of 10 or something.
Wow. You got a score out of 10?
Yeah, and I was just
Oh, that's so
in the
good.
first, yeah, it was, and
Oh,
it was kind of tough to
oh,
love, if there was
oh,
love,
wow.
but it was the experience was formative, and I'm like, God, maybe this career isn't for me. I was questioning myself, but in reality, it was just a young bloke who's had a shot at something and put it up, and probably should have got a pat on the back for just giving it a crack. But I wasn't looking for sympathy at the time, and I was like, oh well, that's probably not the approach that I'll take with me on the next time that I have people. So,
Oh,
but I learned a lot of really good stuff out of that business, a lot of really good technical stuff. Um, so the other things that I learned, it was and in hindsight that wasn't a really good job. I learned a lot of site skills. I was doing a lot of site inspections, and I'd ask a lot of questions. I was incredibly inquisitive.
yeah.
I wasn't just prepared to accept a chart which explained how a pipe capacity would work. For example, I'd need to go and break the Colebrook equation myself, which is the big bugger if you're ever trying to create a spreadsheet.
Yep.
Colebrook, ChatGPT can do it for you now. Although I don't trust chat with its pipe capacities. So there's a tip for young users out there. I don't think it's proficient yet. Um,
Noted.
yeah, so be inquisitive. Don't just accept something because it's written in front of you. You should always go and get a second source of truth and just validate it, right? And just be comfortable that if you can't quantify it yourself from first principles initially, that perhaps you either shouldn't be doing that. You're not qualified to do that job, or not qualified yet. You're not experienced to do that yet, and you need to seek the advice of someone. Okay, on that thing that I would say. Keep growing. You'll get into different positions where you feel like you've mastered something, and you never have, but you might start to lose that motivation. You need to keep growing into that next phase of what is challenging you. If you feel like you've stopped learning, then it's a good indication that you're ready to take on that next element of technical expertise or management or people. This is my own experience anyway. And don't be afraid to be found out for not being an expert at everything either. A lot of people turn up and do one job that they're paid for, and another job they do is protect themselves and their personal brand because they're worried about being found out for not being an expert in Colebrook, for example. Just explain it, tell them your limitations within reason, and remedy it if you can't. So the if you find yourself in a position of stasis, and if you're comfortable with stasis, that's fine. But if you find yourself demoted by that stasis, there's only one person that's going to get you out of it, and that's yourself. Go and speak to your employer, go and find other opportunities, whatever that needs to be. You're responsible for your own career. That's what I would take from my own lesson out of it. And generate your own luck. I've said this before. You can't be lucky unless you put yourself in a position to be lucky. If you're not out there creating an opportunity, unless it's just dumb luck and you bump into somebody at the petrol station who happens to need an engineer, which has happened before, you don't get too many of those.
No.
You need to.
But you had to go fill up some petrol.
You had exactly. Yeah, if you didn't go and get the petrol, you would never have been in that position. That's the same as going out to an industry event,
Yeah.
put yourself in a position to go and talk to somebody, which makes you feel uncomfortable, but you should do it. I think that's probably, or crystallize it. If it makes you feel uncomfortable within business and within your career, it's probably a good sign that you should try it.
Yeah.
It's new, it's exciting, and it's different, and there's a chance to grow.
Yeah. I was trying to coin it in an equation because obviously I'm a nerd.
Just yeah.
And I can't remember what it was exactly. It was something like success equals showing up to the power of luck, or luck to the power of showing up. I think it was showing up to the power of luck.
Something you're gonna do.
If you didn't show up, you couldn't get the luck, and then if you did both, then well, boom, you're a success.
Luck equals opportunity squared, maybe.
Yeah, showing up.
Yeah.
Showing up squared.
It could be lambda. That's Greek.
Yes.
There's omega.
Yes.
There you go. Hey, we're working. There's something.
Well, I mean, there's someone going to be putting that. There's a chat GPT and coming up with an answer, and hopefully they can send it to me because I'd really love to get everyone's take on that because I have heard your other some of your other speaking and yeah that whole piece about creating, I mean, look, I can unpack the curiousness and then that's amazing, but creating your own luck. And I think you're right. You know, if you're not showing up, pushing the boundaries, getting uncomfortable, doing hard things, failing, you know, those opportunities to be lucky won't be there. Do you think or consider yourself lucky to be where you are?
Definitely. I don't consider myself lucky to be where I am. I consider myself, um, well, sorry, I would say yes, but I would consider myself as someone who took advantage of an opportunity that I created.
Yeah.
So the luck came out of the fact that I was lucky enough to realize an opportunity from a circumstance that I found myself in or put myself in. Right, I was still lucky that it happened at some point. It's again, it's probability. Do it enough
Yeah.
times, something's got to stick.
It is probability.
The last element I'll make out of it is you can be lucky, you can get an opportunity, and can be put in front of you. It might happen at the petrol station, but if you don't take it, someone else will.
Yeah.
And if you decide to take it, then you've got to be all in. It can't be a half-assed thing where you do it on the weekends or something. Initially, it could be, but at some point, if you want it to stick, you've got to work harder at it than anybody else is prepared to.
Well, yes, definitely wise words there because do you find that there is a generational engineering shift, maybe in younger engineers or, you know, younger, even graduates, or I'm talking in that, you know, younger age bracket, that 18 to 25. Have you seen a change in what you consider? Because I know I speak to a lot of old hat grey engineers, you know, they're like, oh, you know, I did my 17 till 6 p.m. I did the weekends. I got my 1 out of 10 on my drawing I tried to do for
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
that got knocked back by the other grey hair. Are you seeing any shift in the market, or at least in the young engineers, and maybe how it was very different to what it was like when you were starting out?
Yeah, yeah, I am. I'm not saying I think the younger generation coming through are incredibly grateful for the opportunities that they get, but they're a lot more cognizant of the opportunities that are available to them out there, which is good, which increases the competition for talent, I suppose, and is also lifting the quality of people I believe up that we're seeing come through for the most part. If I look back to my own experience, I got a job opportunity. I got the job. I was ecstatic that somebody wanted to hire me, and you would kind of just accept the fact that where you were was what you were going to get, and you weren't really inquiring as to what else is going on out there. You just kind of really grateful that you had a chance to get a 1 out of 10, and a chance to do some
Yeah.
engineering and learn, and you took your salary and you kind of got on with it. But there's a point in time where you mature as a person, and also through engaging with the community, that you start to go, maybe there is something. Maybe there's a chance to grow in this business or a chance to grow somewhere else. I think that realization is coming on a lot earlier in the younger generation. I would say they're a lot more discerning about what the path offers them, and I think they're less um, inclined, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, time will tell, less inclined to stick it out if it doesn't feel right early enough or early on,
Yeah.
which could have, there's no right or wrong answer to that statement, but there is a difference in the approach. I think to careers, seems to be a little bit more transient or fluid in the early determination. But again, time will tell. As long as if they are more transient in their careers, again, I'm not saying that's wrong. You need to be able to define who it is and what you are and where you've come from. At some point, you need to have a value proposition. You have to
Yeah.
get what that value proposition is. If it's job hopping, you're unlikely to be employed at the Ryan Group, because we're looking for people that want to give back and also put in.
Yeah.
It's hard to give back to somebody or develop somebody who, if you're not confident, is actually really committed to their own career or to the business as well. So, look, we've got standout young people, excellent young people, been with us for several years, their first job. And those are the people that you give a lot of opportunities to, because they're giving it back. They've backed your enterprise or their enterprise. They're part of that business. They consider themselves part of the team, and they're the people that you got to back.
And yeah, you know, because I often reflect, you know, being of similar Grange, and when I guess I was a young engineer, I often thought about, I got to go for this larger company. There was nothing, the term startup didn't even exist.
Yeah.
Even things like shareholding and otherwise, like no one knew anything really about that. When we were young engineers, it was just like go and get a job and work your ass off, and be there as long as you can until you feel like there's might be something else for you. And I feel like in the generation now, the access to information, technology, podcasts, I mean, come on. You
You're
know,
changing the game, mate. You're influencing all of this change. There you go.
yeah, I mean, but it is, and I think that is obviously the whole point of this show, but also, what I'm trying to portray is that there is a whole new world out there, but I wonder, in a way, whether there's almost too much information, a bit of TMI, where it might be
Mm.
misguiding, maybe. And I've only just reflected on that literally just now.
What do
Um,
you
but I think it's very important that.
What do you think, Darren? What's you come across a vast array of technical and non-technical people in our industry and young people and the older generations. I think we're probably in that older generations now. If you're 20 odd years in a career, geez, a good
Yeah.
idea saying that. What's your perspective on it? What do you say? What do you think?
On young
The generational changes. What's
Yeah. I mean, access to information technology, by far, AI, ChatGPT. I can tell when someone's written an email or CV or otherwise with ChatGPT. You can just read through it. It doesn't really hit the mark. There's nothing authentic about it. I've got a bit of an issue with that. Just
you
in
think
terms of
that's
belief that your offer is everything.
mm,
And yeah, I mean, a report can be written by ChatGPT, but if it's something that's engineering, I think it needs to be done and written by the author. I'm very much into that. I think there are a lot of younger engineers that, aspire maybe incorrectly to have a title, to have a design manager or a senior in their title. And I maybe think that might be a little misguided. There is a view of you need to cut your teeth and earn your stripes and learn the hard way, make those mistakes. I'm about throwing young engineers into the deep end.
mm,
I don't think, we're not going to get caught up on that. There's checks and verification in process that means that don't worry, whatever you do, the bridge isn't going to fall down, right? So I think it's really important for young engineers to learn that it's okay to fail. And I think to one of your points earlier, that's something that a lot of young engineers are afraid to do. They're afraid to look like they don't know, or they're afraid to ask the question because they don't want to come across like they don't know the answer. And that's the stereotype that I think young engineers need to break the mold. And like you said, be more curious, challenge the status quo, ask the why, what's the outcome. That's that's really, I think, will change the industry. And I think the other thing is communication. I talk a lot about keyboard warriors. There's a lot of people young engineers, that they won't have those conversations. They're happy to send an email, and you can imagine. I mean, my email went down the other week, and for
what
a
did you
day,
do?
I got so much done in a day.
Yeah.
Picked up the phone. My phone ran out of battery two times in a day because I ran it flat, and it was amazing. And I'm like, I should just do this once a month, because the conversations, asking about people, how their lives are, what they're working on, and those opportunities are exponential. So trying to get young engineers to talk to each other, talk to clients, talk to managers, talk to anyone, one person a day. That's, I think would be one of the most fruitful KPIs for young engineers at the moment.
Yeah, it's also our responsibility to give them access to those people as well. And I think one point is if they don't get access to those people, if they're not going to learn, then the young people and the younger generation have said, "Well, I'll just go somewhere that will help me."
Yeah, the networking, everyone talks about it. I've got to have a network, got to have a network. But you'll never have a network if you don't talk to people. A network's not built by email. And then the other thing, if you're telling people, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I learned it young in my career. ringing up people till I found someone that knew the answer. What happens over a period of time is people start ringing you for the answer because because you went down a rabbit hole 6 months earlier to find out what the solution was. And I think that's probably the power of being an engineer is that, you know, you can have the ability to have some of those answers that could save people a lot of time and money.
Yes, yes, correct. Investing in your own personal brand and agency as a proficient person and expert in your field is incredibly valuable, which you can then take and leverage into business if you so wish.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a lot of and probably labor on it a bit, but I think that's a lot. A lot of younger engineers feel like they can't do that. Their personal brand, maybe they're not wanting to be as vulnerable, or they don't know what to talk about. They have lots of interests and they're passionate about stuff, but putting that out there, particularly in this day and age, LinkedIn wasn't around when I was a young engineer, and if it was, I can't imagine. I'd just be like all over it all the time.
I can imagine it don't. You would have
Networking, but wouldn't you though? Because I think it's such an untapped resource that a lot of young engineers don't leverage. It's just another network, right?
Mm.
But I think once you actually open up to some of those doors, you'd be surprised what opportunities will come your way.
Yeah, no doubt there, mate.
Tell me, often talk a lot about engineers becoming managers. Now, there's obviously a lot of people that talk about that around, engineers just being hardcore engineers and then becoming technical directors or very much in the engineering space. Then engineers who become project managers, senior project managers, project directors, and then move into maybe a role like you've got, because I presume you're not drafting and signing off your design with a school.
The odd drafting here and there, but yeah.
Yeah. So have you felt a shift in that? I mean, I always say, the best project managers are engineers, but I'm biased because I'm an engineer. But what's your take on that transition for someone's career, and maybe what your thoughts are on, not whether it's right or wrong, because it's not so much about the question, but it's more around a lot of people say, I did my engineering degree and I want to be a project manager. Do you feel like you have to cut your teeth as an engineer before you? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't believe with that natural progression. We have people in, so whilst I agree with you in part, I've come across, and even in our business particularly, we have some of our best project managers don't have an engineering degree. They're just incredibly well organized, mindful, people that are able to pick up the concepts and themes and technical appreciation of, but not have to be bogged down in all of the detail, which actually gives them a level of freedom to just move things along, which is project management is understanding a risk and a budget and time and trying to get it all to match. So I don't necessarily, whilst I agree with that, I think the natural inclination when you're at uni is to do some form of engineering, to get into some form of project management, and then that might get you into either client role, which I am sort of a little bit of a bias against. And then maybe that's your career. I think that's fairly myopic or bleak in an approach into what you can do, particularly with an engineering degree and the expertise that you have. We have a common friend who's built a career in being one of the best land development engineers and specialists, and has got an incredibly rewarding pathway in front of them. And there's a very well respected, appreciated member of our team, but also in the community and development industry as well. So I don't think you need to follow a preconceived pathway of growth to find the career or the reward that you think is in some form of horizontal or vertical change. There's definitely, for the right person who is interested in that space, managing people and being part of an organizational chart and finding a way up an organizational chart and taking on more and more people. That's fairly orthodox corporate approach to a career, and it is absolutely a rewarding one for the right person. But then your job becomes less around managing the technical QA and the plan checking and the resourcing, and then becomes into budgets and forecasts and risks and business development, which then falls into client management and business plans and strategic plans, and you become less of an engineer and more of a business person. And that's, you see how many engineers are CEOs of businesses,
Yeah.
and that's fairly, I think that's a reasonably traditional corporate approach to an engineering career. Certainly kind of where I'm at, although it's mixed with technical and business. I see just as much, if not more reward, depending on who you are, in taking a technical approach to your career as well. Developing an expertise in an area or a field, broadening it, so you're across perhaps more than just structural columns and footings and what have you, but structural engineering or land development's got, like I said, hydraulics and earthworks and roads and everything in there. And you may not be designing highways, but you're designing road networks, which has integrated drainage, which has land development, which is why I love it. And that has its own exceptionally broad career opportunities in that. You become an expert in a field which people fundamentally rely on. Back to our earlier point around housing. Without the experts that know how to just look at contours of LiDAR and cadastre and infrastructure servicing from a macro level, plan it out and be able to give directions that are then flowed down through an organizational chart to execute a project, and have anything. So it's a very eclectic, exciting career. You can take multiple paths, but I don't think anyone should be fixed at any predetermined pathway.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. In speaking with a lot of young engineers, there is a misconception that needs to be broken about. There is this idea that there's just this ladder, right? And it's like this role, that role, this role, that role, this role, until you get to whatever it is. And normally, 9 times out of 10, it's got like senior project engineer, project manager, senior project manager, and they're just these steps. And I think trying to break that stereotype of a ladder in that regard, and then trying to get, like those young engineers, to say, if you want to be purely technical, go hard at the technical. You can have very successful career by being and becoming a technical director or an engineering manager or whatever it is, because you're part of a project life cycle or you're part of a project team where, whoever it is needs to turn around to someone and say, hey, what's the answer? Because I think there's a misconception about that.
There is there. I would probably also extend that a little bit into the project management side of itself. I also see that as a very technical niche element as well, to forge a career in project management, if that is who you are, if that is the technical field that you want to practice in, as much as columns and slabs and foundations and roads and drainage. A project management career is also incredibly rewarding one if that's the path that you choose as well. So having to switch from, say, being a project manager into a client-side DM is one career, but also focusing on making your way through to a technical director or project director that can encompass all of those elements and piece them all together into a logical framework as well. That's an incredibly valuable, rewarding career path as well. So, I guess I'm agreeing with you in a very verbose way then.
Yeah, I mean, Engineers Australia have a CP Eng in project management. So, while there's obviously something there to get some accreditation and post nominals. Not that it's all about post
critical matters,
but
even small projects, if it doesn't have someone who's managing and owning the job, how much all those projects go to help?
Like, you see it all the time,
who's leading this
in a room, and you're like, who's managing this project?
Who's taking the minutes? Anyone? Who's
taking minutes? And everyone's just like pointing fingers.
Yes.
Like that Spider-Man meme where it's just like, who's doing that? So tell me, like, what's your take on the future of engineering right now?
Oh, geez, big one. Critical. But absolutely. Couldn't be. I think we could be one of the most important elements of humanity right now. The engineering side, of society is responsible for shifts in renewables and carbon reduction and landing rockets that are grabbed by pincers. Did you see SpaceX land that rocket today?
Yeah.
I mean,
But you see the robots, the Tesla robots.
just, that's, and more and more of the humanitarian side of what we do as engineers is going to be taken up by your chats and everyone knows that in your AI, but that's only going to go so far. I don't believe it at all. It's going to replace humans as engineers as the critical element that is going to move the needle on humanity. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be a tool that we use. And I think engineers are going to be paramount in that dynamic seismic shift that humanity needs and is undergoing, I hope, and we maintain it. It's a very exciting time in humanity in the last 100,000 years to be an engineer, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting play, particularly with those Tesla robots coming out. You can own your own one in your own home, 20 or 30 grand. And I'm thinking, you know what, like, get a couple of them and, build me a new garage.
Labor shortages, mate.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think in at least in my view and having a lot of discussions about this, I actually see that the future of that in engineering will be in materials, because you can't AI materials, you can't, robots, they can mine materials, they can put things together, but it will always be the materials that will be, part of, the equation to go and build the infrastructure or the house or whatever it is that we need at the time. So, yeah, I've got a slightly different take. I think it's a lot closer than we realize, and I think the industry is going to need to move very fast because I feel like the tsunami's coming, and then I'm sure it'll be in our careers. Like I give it 6 years, and by 2030, mate, I think we'll be a very different outcome than what we have right now.
I agree with you on that, but I don't think we have a choice. It's going to happen whether we like it or not.
Oh yeah,
and we'll just be you'll either be a fast starter or fast uptaker or a lost leader or something in that space. You'll be on that chain at some point in time. So it's what it is.
I like the way you said tool. It is a tool. Excel is a tool. Microsoft Project's a tool. ChatGPT is a tool. It's how we choose to use the tools to get, whatever the outcome we're looking for is.
Yeah.
That's gonna hopefully be our role. Because if Elon brings out the engineer robot, mate, look out. I think.
Okay, but who's going to determine if the garbage in or the garbage out is actually garbage out? Sometimes I'll put some stuff in the chat and I'm like, "Oh, go chat, you're drunk." It's just time to read.
Well, you'd have the checking engineer robot checking the robot who's building the
Tesla checker.
Yeah, the Tesla robot checker who also has another checker who's checking.
Who has a human. Yeah.
Yeah, and then finally at the end there'll be a humanoid. No, hey, look, Phil, look, that's such an amazing discussion. It's really been super insightful. I love talking to you about, how you started, what you did, the decisions you made. Getting scored on your structural design. Like I won't forget that anytime soon. If there was one message that you just put out there for the listeners, just one thing, just to take away that you could sort of, finish on, just to give, just give the listeners just something, just even to think about, what would that be, mate?
Well, we've captured quite a bit in there, I suppose, as well. But and again, we're trying to round it all up. Yeah, talked about time, the preciousness of it. You only really get one shot at it. It doesn't mean that you only get a one shot at making a number of mistakes, but if use it wisely, I suppose. And if you're passionate about something, then invest in it and make the most of it, and don't squander a natural gift as well. And don't let somebody else influence something that makes you feel wrong. if something feels right, then you should explore it. But I would say, particularly in your career, like trust your gut a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Put yourself in a position that makes you uncomfortable in your career. That's when you know you're taking a risk and you're growing. So, and get after it. Be prepared to put in more than your competitor, because that's the only real way to get ahead. There's natural ability, but it only gets you so far. So I would say, get out there, generate your own luck, be prepared to work harder than anybody else. That's the only real way to get ahead. If you are looking to start a business or something, do a lot of homework and research. Business is pretty tricky these days, particularly professional services. Make sure you have cash. Don't underestimate the power of cash. There's not a lot out there at the moment. And just have a go.
Love it. That's amazing. Yeah, mate, that's an amazing way to finish up. Philip Byrum, thanks so much for the chat. I've really enjoyed every minute. There's a few laughs in there, some good takeaways, and yeah, I look forward to the Philip Byrum robot when you can replace yourself and you could just kick back and have a holiday. So yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, mate, and congratulations on the podcast and your own initiative there, mate. It's exciting. So good luck with everything. I'm sure you do tremendously well.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. Please like and subscribe. It helps us reach so many more aspiring engineering professionals and entrepreneurs. You can find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and YouTube.